Now that we've got the steps fabricated, we need to install them on the shell. Now notice that the steps had been broken off kind of unevenly. We need to take a file and make those little bumps there even with the sill, and then we can go about attaching the steps. These videos are a little bit out of order. This was actually done before I removed the fingerprints, but it seemed more logical to have this as the fourth part of the restoration. This is the inside of the shell, showing the initial cuts that I made to place the ends of the stirrup steps into. These cuts were made using a hobby knife and a jeweler's file. When making the grooves, you have to be careful not to go through the shell. It doesn't necessarily have to be the whole width of the staple, but it has to be in far enough so that it looks like it's attached from the outside. I used JB Weld to affix these steps to the inside of the shell in these channels. Actually, I use JB Quick, which is faster setting. So the first thing to do is to mix up a little bit of JB Quick and apply it to the grooves in which you're going to mount the step. Do it one at a time, so of course the rest don't harden while you're working on each one. Leave it on for a little while, maybe 15-30 seconds, something like that, and it will thicken enough so that when you apply the steps to the into the grooves, they'll not just slip out. Then let the epoxy cure after you've done all four. When it is not fully cured and is still flexible, you can take a piece of styrene that you've pre-cut to match the right distance from the bottom of the sill to the bottom of the step, and make sure that all the steps are more or less straight and more or less the right distance away from the sill. Then when the epoxy resin starts to harden up or get a little bit stiff, you can move the step around to make sure it's positioned properly. A little piece of styrene. It's the right height for the step. No, it's supposed to be the right height for the step. And there it is. Make sure it's straight, that the bottom is parallel with the bottom of the boxcar shell, and that it's the same distance away from the sill here on all four. And just let this JB Weld Quick harden for a half an hour or so, then check it again. It'll still be a little flexible, so you can tweak it a bit and then leave it alone, and it will never ever fall out. It's great stuff. I try to make the steps parallel with the sides of the cars, depending upon what the prototype looks like. Some steps are angled out a little bit, but that's fairly rare. The other thing that's important is to make sure that all the steps on the side are aligned with each other when looking down the side of the car, and that's true on both the left and the right hand sides of the car. They may move a little bit, so you probably will have to do this a couple of times, but eventually the epoxy will cure enough so that they'll stop moving around. So once they're aligned with the sides of the car in the distance between the sills and the bottom of the steps have been checked, you can then put the car aside and let the epoxy fully cure. This is what I used to epoxy in the steps. This stuff is really good, as is the non-quick setting JB Weld. I swear by it. I've fixed a lot of other things non-train related using this stuff, and it does what they claim it does. So I highly recommend it, and it lasts a long time. These are probably probably almost 2 years old, and long shelf life. They're still good. The metal here and the epoxy interfere with getting the shell on, so I used a motor tool with a fine wheel on it to grind it down so it would fit. Also, I had to do some grinding on the bottom part of the car. I had taken enough material off the sides of the car. I didn't want to go any further, so I ended up taking a little bit off each of these corners here to complete the amount of clearance that I needed to get the bottom back on. Actually, there's not quite enough as it stands, so I may take a couple of other cuts at these to make some more space to get this shell on the bottom of the chassis here. Notice that the wood has been painted, or the plastic fake wood has been painted, and that will be featured in another video to come on painting. And here's my rotary tool, all ready to go to work. It's invisible from almost any angle that you look at the car, so it's something that has no consequences visually. Well, that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon. Bye.